he unconsciously hits the brakes and things he wants to do simply because he wants to fall by the wayside. This quote is from Sakakibara, the editor and also a huge fan of Yuji Kaku, the creator of Jikokuraku. We're having a lot of Japanese here. Hell's Paradise. I think most people don't know this. I myself didn't know this either until I looked up. But Hell's Paradise was originally published digitally first on Manga Plus. I always thought that everything that was on Manga Plus was just an extensions of works that were already being published physically. And this is really important because Kaku mentioned it in an interview that he makes larger speech bubbles for the readability and that he draws double page spread in a way that they don't look awkward if you view it one page at a time. And I gotta say, I did notice that reading Hell's Paradise felt kinda different. Now, even though Kaku had experience as an editor, this is actually how he started with manga. As an author now, he needs an editor to help him along the way. And that editor is Sakakibara, besides having a super cute face. He also happens to be a huge fan of Yuji Kaku's art, ever since his earlier work, Phantasma, which I still haven't read. And from this very unusual setup, a former manga editor becoming a mangaka, paired with an editor who is genuinely a fan of his work, Jikokuraku, Hell's Paradise, was born. But by Kaku having a favorable opening to publish the manga, the fact that Kaku used to be an editor is something that still kinda haunts him in his life as a mangaka. In an interview given to Manga Plus itself, Sakakibara explains this internal conflict that Kaku have very clearly. I'll leave the interview linked on the description, but in this video I want to focus on points that I personally found most interesting. If you're enjoying this content, please hit the like button and subscribe if you want to help me keep making content. Hell's Paradise was born when Kaku finally managed to break and disobey the editor that exists inside him. As an illustrator myself, I often have to sleep on my own knowledge to truly appreciate certain things. The point is, knowledge is valuable, and sometimes it helps us to consume a work of art with more awareness. But in Kaku's case, understanding the structures that make a good story also makes him much more critical to himself. Like a chef that overanalyzes his own food in 1,000 tiny ways, while for the average person, the meal is just delicious. Sometimes the food isn't the best in the world. It's simple, but it's emotional. It connects with you. And this is funny to say considering that I'm terrible at cooking, but my partner is basically the Sanji of the house. You mean the very fact that he was a manga editor was actually getting in his way? That was a question that was made for our friend Saki-kun, and his answer were, I feel like editors have this tendency to make things quote-unquote normal, but once authors breaks that down, big hits get made. I think Kaku-sensei probably noticed this while creating manga that was heading towards the normal direction. Later in this interview, Sakakibara also talks how editors tend to organize every tiny detail, but that many successful manga actually goes on the opposite direction, falling in a logical but fun path. And this brings me back to the quote I used at the beginning of the video. He unconsciously hits the brakes, and for fun as his own sake, things he wants to do simply because he wants to fell by the wayside. The story of Hell's Paradise was actually going to be about children being sent to a youth detention center together with the lawyers fighting for them. But after a discussion with our homie Saki, he dropped the setting, I think for the good, and became that masterpiece that we all know. Either way, Kaku could keep his first intent, really different characters being exposed to each other and building unusual relationships. Now, to explain better about the conflict of the artist versus art, I'm going to step into a field that I'm more familiar with, drawing. One thing we hear a lot as beginner artists is how important it is to understand the fundamentals. You know, anatomy, perspective, composition, and so on. But at the same time, we also see artists that never really touched a tutorial or an art book in their lives and still create beautiful, stunning work. So why is that? Because there's different ways to learning. Those artists who seems to lack theoretical knowledge have still learned a lot empirically through observation. Before there was theory about painting, people were already painting. Shout out to my favorite OG artist who painted this absolute banger back then. So does that mean learning fundamentals is useless? Of course not. I don't consider myself as someone with natural talent, actually. I see myself as someone who chases a specific interest with a bit more persistence than average. But again, I'm not special. Learning fundamental is like receiving weapons and tools from people who have already walked a path that you want to go. People with more experience than you. So okay, now that you know the fundamentals, now that you have conquered the skills, what do you do with them? You break them. But breaking the fundamentals after understanding versus breaking the fundamentals without knowing anything makes a huge difference. A cartoon, for example, may look really simple, while why it does look better drawn by a person who actually knows how to draw versus a person who don't have drawing knowledge. Because it's simple, but we still can see the techniques behind simplified, broke. So that's the beauty. When you conquer something, you master the simplification of it. And that's how I see Kaku. By breaking his own internal editor in order to become a mangaka, he gains both advantage and disadvantage. But the result is a unique and beautiful work of art. I really enjoy reading interviews with creators to better understand the lives of people behind the works that I love. Actually, there is an interview between Kaku and Miura that I have read multiple times and it still makes me emotional. But they talk a lot about creative process, references, and so on. Might make a video about this someday. Thank you for staying with me until here. See you next time.